Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the show. It's Saturday, April 29th. Yes, you heard me correctly. April 29th, Saturday, not Friday. Forgot we had prom last night. I don't know how that slipped my mind last week, but it did. It's
Yeah.
Chris. And of course, I'm here with the Jenny.
What's up?
What's
going on?
Yeah, I'm confused at how that slipped my mind.
I know I kind of forgot that it was even Saturday until you mentioned it. Yeah, because Friday was definitely busy, but glad to be here.
Yeah.
Back at it.
So, I mean, there's a ton of stuff we could talk about this week.
Yeah.
I mean, just an absolute. I mean, I could have a 5.5 hour podcast today and probably not even cover
I know, right?
But we got a couple. I think we're going to start off on a lighter note. Did you see Brittany Griner's interview?
I saw that she said, I'm more wondering why they even it seemed like the dumbest article to me that I saw, just the quotes or headlines or saying, why she doesn't want to go back overseas.
Yeah, not because you went to jail.
Right. I mean, yeah, obviously, why would you? Why is that even a story? It's like, oh, hey, so are you thinking about going back overseas? What kind of a dumb question is that?
Yeah. Well, again, she should have no fear of going. And by the way, her ultimate reason for not going to play basketball overseas again is because she's just worried about getting arrested again. But she blames the reason why they have to go overseas on the gender pay gap.
The pay gap.
Completely ignoring, of course, the fact that the WNBA has absolutely no followership.
Yeah, I don't. Well, it's funny. What bothered me the most about that is she's like, I need money to pay for my, for my family to eat and stuff or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
pay her light bill.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. I'm sure you're struggling.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, probably, $140,000, $150,000 a year salary you were already getting, clearly not enough.
Yeah.
Just because the average American family makes like $85,000 a year, your 150 clearly isn't enough.
I'm glad you can go over there and support your family, but I think you're taking care of that. Meanwhile, many men go overseas too to play
effortlessly.
Yeah, I mean,
we have a member of my family who was in the NBA, played there for a couple of seasons, and then moved to overseas, and he's played in, of all places, China for years now. He's played in Greece. So, yeah, I mean, people do it, and
I mean, it's for those players who are usually on the line or whatever. And they want to make some extra money, or they want to try to keep their career alive, get some more eyes on, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's going to happen. But yeah, it's not the narrative racism.
Again, they talk about she talks about the gender pay gap, completely ignoring the fact that in the industry that she's in specifically, it's driven by salaries, are driven by sponsorships and attendance and those types of things. And the WNBA just has nothing to do with the fact that you're a woman. It has everything to do with the fact that your brand, your league, does not inspire. I mean, most women don't even watch the WNBA.
Right. I mean, the WNBA is completely subsidized by the NBA.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're fortunate that you're able to play basketball on a professional level at all, because if the woke leftists like you guys get your way, there will be no gender sports.
Right. It'll just be the NBA, and if you can make the team, you can make the team.
Yeah.
And if you make a team, if you get any playing time, that's
yeah.
Good luck.
That's a meritocracy right there.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yep. So anyway, hey, so you had, and this is if you read my little headline underneath my name right here, it says it has become reality. And what I mean by that is the next couple of things that we're going to tell you about these people who their reality is now everything that the liberal left has said that their reality should be. So go ahead, Jimmy, and tell us about.
Well, I don't think we've certainly not completely got to where they want to be. There's plenty more. It can always be worse. There's plenty more things coming.
Absolutely, but to the extent that somebody would actually try this shit, tells me that the people now, fortunately, and I don't know exactly where this happened.
Where my situation happened?
Yeah,
that's a good question.
But the fact that somebody thinks that it's even a valid argument at this point tells me that the left has been very effective in their messaging to these communities because they believe that they're going to go spew this shit and people are just going to buy off on it and say, oh, yeah, you're right.
So the incident that I'm talking about, and if you can figure out what my tagline means, you'll understand. So I'm sure, hopefully, a lot of people have heard about this. This occurred in Ohio, actually.
Oh, of all places. Well, that's probably why law enforcement did what they did.
Yeah. So there was a woman who went to Target. She racked up over $1,000 worth of merchandise and went to the checkout counter, processed all of her merchandise through, and had a over $1,000 bill, and knew that she wasn't going to be able to afford it. So she stops everything. She halts business for Target and says, we need to have a larger conversation about Target covering the difference in my groceries, or my merchandise, whatever it is, because I'm not going to be able to cover the whole thing, and that's what I'm owed. And so obviously the court is like, well, what are you going to do? I can't help you out. What are you talking about? What do you want? And so they call up the manager, and the lady who's checking out, did I mention she's a black female? That becomes an issue here shortly. So a smaller white female manager comes over and says, how can I help you? What's going on? And then this lady, I think, she doesn't become irate, but she is starting something. She wants to assert herself.
She becomes very passive aggressive, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I
think from a verbal standpoint, she wasn't super aggressive, but she got physically aggressive.
Right.
She got up in this woman's face, in this manager's face, and basically started demanding that Target compensate her for the remainder of her goods for the purpose of reparations. And so she gets in this woman's face, and the manager puts her hands up, touches the woman to kind of back her off of her space, doesn't shove her, doesn't become physically violent with her, but just gets her out of her face. And then the loss prevention, somewhat security guard comes out and sees what's going on and asks her to explain what's going on with them. Essentially asks her to leave because this isn't going to resolve itself. But the lady gets aggressive, and he backs up and asks her to not come closer, don't get in his face. He backs up. She keeps following him aggressively, backs him into his office, and he can't retreat anymore. And at that point, he felt physically threatened, and he just decks her in the face. This Karen got knocked the F out, and it was beautiful.
Yeah.
If you're going to mess around, then you're going to find out.
So then, of course, at this point, she thinks that with law enforcement coming, they're of course going to be on her side.
Of course, yeah. She just got physically assaulted, so she is obviously in the right. And so, yeah, when the police got there, they explained, or they tried to figure out what was going on, but they immediately saw what had happened, and she's sitting there giving them this BS narrative about how she's owed compensation for reparations. We need to have a larger conversation, and Target's the right organization to do this. Money hasn't been fair to everybody,
Right.
so they're owed this and that. Like, why are you entitled? And just as a little bit of judgment here, she's a very overweight person. Not to me that you're not living some poor life. You're getting taken care of. You think you need you need these $1,000 groceries or whatever? Who do you think you are that you're owed this? You're entitled to this. You probably
Well, she's been told that, Jimmy.
Yeah.
She's been told that. The white liberal elite have set in place in these communities that belief that they are owed absolutely everything at the behest of everyone else who is not of the same race as them. And they're owed it, so there should be no question when somebody of her color comes in and demands that they get something for nothing. I don't even know why we're questioning it.
Right. Yeah. Target should just be like, yes, you're right. Take anything you want. We'll cover it.
Mhm.
Whatever. That's fair, right? We owe you because whatever. Like, this is the dumbest thing, and it just kills me that these are the kind of people that we have in our society. They're just so entitled, and I'm glad that she faced a little bit of reality. So she's the one that got arrested. She tried to claim that this is her Rosa Parks moment.
Right. Yeah.
And she was shocked when he was not going to get in trouble when she was the one that was physically assaulted.
Well, and the good thing is the media did not run with this story.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah, so it was there for, I think I saw it 2 days ago, maybe. It was kind of like a flash blur, but I didn't see it on any of the networks being covered. Black woman assaulted by, Target employee or.
I'm kind of surprised though, aren't you? Because like,
I am and I'm not, and the reason I'm going to say I'm not is, and we can talk about this more later because this is a whole nother conversation. But I think the media in general, particularly over the last 2 or 3 months, is going through a little bit of a recalibration, I think is the word I would like to use. Now, does that mean that they're not going to stick with their, their mainstays, Trump, and all that crap? No, they're going to do that. But I think on stories like this, I think that they've honestly been burned so many times now that at least at the executive level, pushing down to the people in front of the cameras, they're at least attempting to take a step back and not be quite so quick. Before it was all about who was first. Who's first to report it? That's the most important thing. I think they're kind of taking. I think
a lot of that still goes on, but I don't know. I think part of the reason is the videos is out there and to very clearly see what went down. And so that's.
And I think Target released them.
It's very hard to defend. Yeah. So I encourage anybody who hasn't seen it, take a
watch
look.
it.
It's quite entertaining, but it just gives you a good idea of what these people think out there. And this is not really a unique story.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, probably not. So, okay, there's one person where this has become reality for. So let's go into the second one.
What do you got?
The other one you were telling us about.
At the dealership?
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, this is just another random.
Just another reality. People living in these people's realities, just like.
Yeah, that nobody sees. But yeah, another 21-year-old woman working at a car dealership while she's going to school was drunk on the job. And I think that the owners had enough of it, and they went and they fired her on the spot, but she refused to leave. She's intoxicated, sitting at her desk in an office. They have to call the cops. The cops come out there, and they start to, ask her what's going on, and she's just like, no, nothing. What's going on? I'm good. And then they're like, well, you've been asked to leave. She's like, no, well, I'm a lawyer, or not.
I'm in law school.
I'm in law school, and so I know more than you, and you know, you can't do this. And she's like, I'm not. She basically refused to leave, even though. But she acted confused. She was drunk. She's just very entitled, thinking that she can do whatever she wants, and she gets dragged out of there because they had enough of it, and they're like, "Well, this isn't reality. You can't just say these things and get your way because you think that you're special." Yeah, this is just a young person who's super entitled. She gets dragged out of there and then starts making up lies and saying, "Oh, I was trying to leave and they wouldn't let me leave."
Right.
And it just insanity.
Yeah, they wouldn't let you leave. Yeah, they called the cops because you wouldn't leave. That makes total sense.
Right.
Total sense. Yeah. So the reality that these folks, and now, if I remember correctly, the woman in our first story, she didn't appear to me to be a young woman. I mean, probably middle aged, certainly. Yeah. Not old, but certainly not like fresh out of college or anything, or fresh out of high school, however you want to, whatever. But these are the realities that these people are living in, like this, and you've said it a couple of times, this self-entitlement of, I can do whatever the hell I want. I can take whatever the hell I want. I can go wherever the hell I want. And there's not going to be any repercussions to me because I'm owed. And that just, it's insanity. And I don't understand these people thinking that is in any way, shape, or form a realistic way to go through and live the rest of your life. I feel sorry for them to an extent, because if that's what you believe and that's what you think is going to happen to you over the course of the next 50 years of your life, you're going to be sadly mistaken. Sadly mistaken. So I don't know. I just thought those were two interesting stories, and it's whatever, I guess.
I don't know where that's going to go. Is it going to trend more in that direction or regress a little bit? But I hope that the next generation starts to realize that this is just not reality, and they need to face some consequences. I think I've said it multiple times recently, is we're dealing with children who have never had to face responsibilities. They're coddled as children, and so they continue to be children as they become adults legally, but they still act like children, and they lash out just like children. They throw these childish toddler tantrums, and they think that that's how that's going to get their way, because probably in a lot of cases it does.
Right. Well, it works at home.
Yes, it works at their home, but it works at their workplace. I mean, as long, unless they're breaking laws, but like if they start demanding things, that's why we see some of the stuff in schools and at universities and small businesses and whatnot. Is big businesses, government agencies.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
I say it all the time.
Yep.
People that feel entitled and think that they're morally superior than everybody. I don't know how they continue to get away with that, unless it's us and we let them get away with it. But when they start to face real consequences, hopefully it's a wake-up call, because you can't continue to be children and be responsible.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a symptom of what has been pushed. And I think that we as parents, particularly parents of kids that are still in school, I don't think that in a lot of ways we really know. And I think Elon Musk alluded to this the other day too. It's really we really don't know to what extent this type of, I don't even know what to call it. It's not brainwashing, but indoctrinating, I guess, is the good word for it, is really going on in our schools and in our universities. We know that it goes on, but I'm not sure that we're really clear on the whole effect or the amount of this stuff that's actually going on in our schools. So we sit here and we complain about it, but at the same time, are we really aware of how deep this is entrenched in the stuff that they're being taught when they're out of our presence? So I don't know. I thought Elon was pretty spot on with that because you don't. I mean, you obviously have a little bit more control and understanding at high school or middle school than you do at college. So it's hard. It's hard to say. But we're gonna move on to the next.
What do you got?
Dun, dun, dun. The Biden sagas. So, Big Joe, big guy, made his announcement this week that he is running for re-election and Kamala is going to be his running mate. Even though only 37% of the Democrat population want him to run. Only 37%. Jimmy Carter, at this time in his presidency, remember he only had one term because he lost, was at 41%. So Biden has
less favorability
within his own party than Jimmy Carter did.
But somebody thinks that that's their best chance.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with them. Who else do they have? And another thing that is now that I've heard rumblings over the last 2 days with this is because of his age, they're seriously not considering if Joe Biden's going to be there for 4 years. What the consideration is that Kamala Harris will ultimately end up having to take over for him. And that's becoming a serious concern, even within the Democratic Party, is that their concern is Kamala will end up at some point, if Biden won a second term, that she would at some point end up taking over as president of the United States. And that's a bigger concern to them than Joe Biden.
Yeah, I think, I've said it multiple times that I don't think he's going to make it through this term. I very well could be wrong about that, but I'm still confident that there's something will happen. There's no chance that he legitimately will be ready to serve at come of 2025 when he would be inaugurated.
The problem is now that he's announced, time's running out.
He's just falling apart so quickly. He was already in shambles when he first got elected. It's a daily occurrence that there's gaffe and he just cannot control himself.
Yeah, we saw his card the other day in the news.
And that's nothing new. It's just it should be a big deal. It's not, because it's par for the course.
Yeah.
And the guy just wants to sit in the basement and eat ice cream.
Well, and that leads me into the next part of this is once Joe announced that he was running, the DNC almost immediately came out and said there will be no primary debates. So it doesn't matter who runs against Joe, he will not have to debate him. Why? And Democrats, you're the ones that are always screaming that, democracy is under attack. Is it democracy that you not have the opportunity to hear the other candidates that want to vie for your vote? Is it democracy that they shield this guy from having to get there and explain his record that is clearly now his record on issues? Is that democracy?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
For a party that's so worried about the destruction of democracy, I don't hear anyone screaming and crying that they're not going to do any debates, because that's the most democratic part of our election season is the debates between candidates, so that you, as the voter, can make sound decisions based on what you heard the candidates say. And the media is certainly not going to give RFK Jr. any airtime.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I'm curious how that plays out, because the organizer, the DNC, is controlling Joe Biden essentially, right?
Well, they control the party.
Well, but my point is, if they just wanted to control the party, then they would have no opponents to Joe Biden. So
they can't stop somebody from saying they're going to run, but the way that they get around that is exactly what they're doing. They shelter the
They
candidate.
can shelter Joe Biden, but my point is they can. The rest of the candidates can debate all they want.
They can, but they're going to have to fund it themselves. Where the
Should-
DNC, because the DNC can
Yeah.
control the purse strings.
Right.
So there's
Yeah,
no
that's-
funding, and the major networks aren't going to cover it.
Oh well, I don't know about that.
Oh, I do. There's no way that MSNBC or NBC or ABC or CNN or any of these organizations are going to moderate or cover something that the DNC is not behind.
Well, then they have zero integrity, and you know,
Well, we know
I know
that.
they didn't have much, but like that to me, that means they have zero integrity because then there's no honesty, and that you actually want what's best for the country, best for our people, because that's just completely dishonest. To you're doing it for what?
Well, how many interviews since Miriam, and I always forget her last name, Marianne or whatever her name is that's running, that was the first one to announce that she was running against Biden. How many interviews on TV have you seen with her? None. I went back and looked. Haven't found any. How many since RFK announced 3 weeks ago? RFK Jr. said he was going to run. No, I've seen no interviews with him on TV. The media are doing exactly what the mainstream media plans on doing at the behest of the DNC. They're going to completely shield Biden from opposition. And because that's the only thing that people in America are going to see on a normal basis on television, that's where they're going to vote. And that's the entirety of the plan.
Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, Williamson. I knew it was like Williams or something.
Yeah. I had it just on the tip of my tongue.
I mean, look, do I think that either one of them have a chance of beating him in a primary? No, because they're not well known. They're not popular.
I just think it's for that same reason, is that those networks and the whole Democratic Party in general has no solid foundation.
Right. Well, and RFK Jr. is an anti-vaxxer, so they're not going to promote him at all.
He was an anti-vaxxer before even COVID.
Yeah. But they certainly went after him.
I think this election cycle will be a good test of like how much have people learned. I mean, because we hear the loud people, I want to say, that are still pushing. They're the loud people, and then they're the ones that are just completely unaware of politics altogether. I mean, and I still find that even hard to believe for most people because they still go to the grocery store. They still have to put gas in their vehicle.
Absolutely.
They still, considering buying houses, buying cars. They see the economy as trash, and then if you completely can't put that together and you don't correlate the two, like, why is this the case? Oh, I guess the world just sucks.
Yeah.
Man, we need Democrats to do some things here. No.
Yeah.
But I guess Republicans, maybe the evil Republican narrative lives on, I think, in most of those people. It doesn't matter. Blue, no matter who.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, and again,
even if they're dead.
What is pumped into these mass population areas, which are almost exclusively Democratic run, the only thing that's ever pumped into these places is that message. We're going to tell you what's best for you. We're going to tell you who to vote for. There's no exceptions. You just need to listen and trust us because we've been here for you for, however many decades. And obviously you're still here, so we must have done a good job. So please just keep believing us. And I promise you this time, we're going to come through for you. And they buy it. Hook, line, and sinker every single fucking time.
Well,
this is not a novelty approach that the Democratic Party is taking. This is the same playbook that they've had for at least 3 decades.
I think there's something that'll catch on, but it's like, it's not even, I would almost buy that even more if there was like good candidates on the left in the sense of like they were good speakers like Obama was. Like, honestly, I'm envisioning like a Gavin Newsom, somebody who's young and confident and just they can confidently lie through their teeth, but they sound good doing it.
Right.
and they can sell, people who aren't paying attention easily. They can spew lies, but as long as it sounds good, like I would believe that. But when we're dealing with people like Joe Biden, who are just insane, senile, they're falling apart, and falling down,
literally.
I mean, if that's what you're going with, what, man? How bad do you think the right is doing that? I mean,
again, it's like a little kid, man, and I'll keep going back to it. That's all they ever hear. That's all that is ever put in front of them. There is no inner city conservative movement to counter any information that is put out by the liberal and Democrat organizations in these inner cities. And it's not that they don't have a ground game. It is virtually ingrained, and it starts with the grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
If your grandparents are telling your parents, who are telling you, it's generational. What the beliefs are here. This isn't just this generation that believes this shit. It's the generations before them that have been spoon-fed this shit and nothing else for decades. And they just, don't get me wrong, I think they truly believe it. We said before, don't believe your lying eyes. Oh, I know, you go to the grocery store, it's costing you 37% more for your grocery bill, but that's not our fault, so believe us. They never go into depth on the thing, but they're just saying, believe us, it's not our fault. We didn't do it. This is what the other guys are doing. And there's no counter message because of the media being pumped into those neighborhoods or into those communities to counter it. Because they would never allow it. And of course, they hear big bad Fox News, and of course, none of them are ever going to turn that on. To hear a differing opinion because they've been told that Fox is the big Russian collaborator, when in fact it was the Hillary Clinton campaign that was actually collaborating with Russia to get information on Donald Trump. So I seriously believe it's a generational belief, and I do think they believe it. Kids, obviously, the younger generation, that's all they've ever heard, especially in the last 10 to 15 years. Anyone who's 21 years and younger, pretty much, maybe even I would go as far as say 25 and younger, this is all they've heard their entire life, is that Democrats are here to help you and Republicans are not to help you. You're here to take everything away. And that message over time, it's like training a dog.
Yeah, I think we're largely talking about people. There's a good portion of the population that are unreachable, though. Well, there's no swaying their opinion.
Right.
There's no point of even trying. They're just pretty solidified. But I think there's another good portion that is open-minded, and they're willing, they're unaffiliated, I think, with a side. Honestly, I don't know. I still hear story after story of people converting, like being a lifelong left and then being awakened to.
Well, Harold Ford, do you know who Harold Ford Jr. is?
No.
He's a former Democrat congressman. He's on the 5 on Fox News all the time. He's the Democrat that they have on their panel on the 5.
Maybe I just don't know him by name.
He's a liberal. I like some of what the guy says. Some of the stuff he says is obviously the run of the mill Democrat talking point bullshit. But there's a lot of stuff I like that he says, and he's
sure.
On a lot of things he's pretty even keeled. He actually on TV this past week said that he would be voting for President Trump if it's a Trump-Biden presidential run this time. He said, "I will be voting for Trump," and that's a pretty staunch.
Yeah, see that's kind of my point. Is I think that it will be a good test. There's a lot of people who are just fed up and are there, even though it's hitting them in the face over and over again. A lot of the people are not seeing it, but plenty of people are.
Yeah.
People are waking up to it, and I'd really like to see how much that is going to change.
The issue for me is, and yes, you're right. There are a significant amount of people throughout the country that have their eyes wide open. I believe that. The problem is the population centers in these states: New York City, California, LA, San Francisco, the major population centers that control the outcome of the vote for a state, which in turn controls the entire electoral college vote for that state.
Yeah.
You're never gonna win those.
Well, I'm just curious how much of those people are actual voters. And honestly, I think the number of those people that are actual voters are very low. I think that it has come, we saw in the last election that it has come down to basically ballot harvesting.
Yeah.
The whole mail-in voting thing, early voting.
But the thing is, Jimmy, and you're right, but the thing is we know that, right? The Republican Party, if to say that they don't know and understand that at this point would just mean that they are the dumbest organization on the face of the planet. So why aren't they out there doing the same goddamn thing? Why aren't they out there pushing their ground game to push for mail-in? Because how do Republicans lose elections? They lose it 3 days after because they haven't counted the mail-in vote. So if you change the demographic of Republicans still having predominance on election day, but also have a 20 to 30% higher submission of mail-in ballots, how do you parse that?
I think the Republicans know. The problem is the people who are the non-voters that Democrats are harvesting, we'll say, just to simplify it, are likely Democrats the Democratic voters who just don't vote. They likely lean left, so they're much more swayable because they're in those concentrated populist areas, and but they just don't care enough to go, but they're easily to be swayed. So even if Republicans went into those same areas and they went to all those apartment buildings or whatever, and harvested all those votes, or tried to, they wouldn't be as successful just because of who they're trying to do that to.
But they don't have to be. That's my point. They don't have to be as successful. We have I think in the last election, the report was that Republicans, it was 80-20 on election day voters.
Yeah.
People who actually go to the polls and vote on election day.
And it's reverse on mail-in voters.
It's reverse, but higher. It's like 95-5 or something like that.
Yeah, and I was going to kind of get to that, but I think we've screwed ourselves. Legislators have screwed us or whatever on allowing that to happen.
Right.
Like, why? Because I don't think that's something you can.
But then you have a state like Georgia
to fix.
Then you have a state like Georgia that did change their law and allowed mail-in ballots, in excess, in my opinion. But they allowed them, and yeah, sure. Did Warnock win? Yes. I can't remember who their other one was that was running. But Stacey Abrams still got her ass kicked. So I think there is validity. The problem is in other states, they don't want to put the checks and balances in place to ensure that there's validity. So Georgia has a very forward-thinking use of mail-in ballots, but there's also very strict requirements for the submission of those.
I don't necessarily even. I'm not concerned about mail-in ballots because if it's a legitimate mail-in vote by a human who's alive and submits it themselves, and it's not me submitting it for my mom or something like that. If it's legitimate, I don't care about mail-in ballots, and they should all be mailed in and tallied day of.
Right.
They don't need to be, or beforehand, whatever. They don't need to be tallied overnight, all at the same time, whatever, or 7 days or 2 weeks later. Like, sorry, it's really sketchy. And I don't have any trust in our voting system for that reason.
Right, but look at the states that are doing that. Pennsylvania. They don't. First of all, your ballot can be postmarked the day of the election, which means it's not even received at the election center or wherever it gets mailed to until days after the election. And any ones that they have received, they don't even start counting until the polls close. So at 9 o'clock at night, they can start tallying mail-in votes, and you don't even have to mail them until that day. So that's going to lend itself to a week or a week and a half, and especially as you loosen the restrictions on who can actually mail in a ballot. And so the number of ballots grows, of course. And it's just lending itself to these weeks. We've had the same county. What was the county? Was it in Georgia? Maricopa County, I think. Is that Georgia or Arizona?
That's Arizona.
Arizona. So Maricopa County, 2 elections in a row. They've been the last ones to actually be able to tally their shit because of the ridiculous way that they do these mail-in ballots.
Yeah.
And they said last time, we've got it down now, we're going to be good. And here we go, 2020 election, they did the same goddamn thing, and it turned out exactly the same way. It took them forever. They were the last ones in the country. The entire country is waiting for Arizona.
I just don't understand how we allow that. Like, why is that acceptable?
Yeah.
Should not be.
They elect these people. They elect these people and put them in their local. And again, it goes back down to the local counties, because the counties, even though there is state law for elections, there is federal law for elections, but the counties also have a say in how their elections are run, which is why every single county in a state has their own election office. And so they can dictate. In Maricopa County, they've completely screwed the pooch on us twice. But they elect these people. I mean, nobody's been fired. Nobody's been recalled. Nobody's been held to account for any of these issues. They're all still there, and it'll happen again in 2024. And we'll see. I mean, now I got to write down Maricopa County so that in 2024 I can say, let's see if Maricopa County is going to be our last county in the entire country.
For sure, it will.
Count those again. All right, enough on that. Monday is going to be a huge day, and I don't think a lot of people realize why.
Yeah, I definitely don't.
Yeah.
Monday, May 1st, right?
Hunter Biden has to go to court, I believe in Wisconsin, maybe, on a child support issue for his illegitimate child that he had with a stripper, who for years he claimed wasn't his until the court forced him to take a paternity test and confirm that it was his child. Which, by the way, that's a whole topic. But this whole Joe Biden talking about how family is so important to him, yet he refuses to acknowledge that this 4-year-old little girl who carries the last name Biden is one of his grandchildren.
Wow.
That's a whole other story.
That's really sad.
Yeah, it is sad for the child. I mean, it just is overall. Having said that, this judge has determined that Hunter needs to be in person in court on Monday. So why is that important? Why is that a big deal? Well, it's about him paying child support. And her basis for bringing it back is all the stuff that was on his laptop about all the financial dealings that he's had with all these millions of dollars worth of deals, and him saying him basically telling the court that he has no money and he can't pay child support. So they are going to mandate that he be there in person, and he's going to have to provide financial documents. So that's going to be the interesting part. I don't now.
We know how it's going to play out.
It
It's going to, I mean,
may.
he's the son of the president. They can fudge whatever they want to fudge. And
It's not about fudging, it's about producing, because he is saying, in contrast to what the documents that have already been released from his laptop, self-acknowledged that it's his laptop because they're suing, saying that it was a breach of his privacy to release them. So obviously they're saying that they were his shit, his documents. You can't have it both ways. You can't say that, these are that's not my laptop, but then in the same breath turn around and sue him for breach of privacy, saying that you released data from my laptop. So he's gonna have to provide to the court financial records to contrast what she's using as her evidence to say that he has millions and millions of dollars. So it could be, and this is a family court. This isn't a federal court. This isn't this isn't somebody who is held to a DOJ or something standard for how they handle these types of things. She's an elected judge in the family court, so I'm not sure she can be swayed the way somebody on the federal bench might be swayed.
yeah, true.
So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like I don't know exactly which community it is in Wisconsin. Pretty sure it's Wisconsin. I don't know what county it is. Not that matters, because again, I think that so far this judge has shown that she just doesn't give a shit about the whole federal, or the whole Biden family importance that they put on themselves, because she's, his attorney said, well, he doesn't need to show up. She said, no, he will fucking be here Monday morning, and he will answer these questions. So I don't know. We might get a peek. At what they're saying happened to all these millions of dollars that he claims. Yeah, because right now he's claiming that he's broke. So
that's just insane to me.
Yeah. Well, he's living in daddy's house rent free.
And where does money go? I mean, didn't he received all that money from Burisma. We know of his other financials from the laptop and stuff.
Oh, and we know what his other partners have come out and said.
Didn't he sell paintings for half a million dollars and blah blah blah? I mean, that's just 100% the way to launder
the fastest undiscovered famous painter in history. He had paintings that sold for more than Van Gogh's.
I mean, that's just a clear way to just hide the way you're giving money to a person for political sway or whatever.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I think it's I think it'll be interesting. I think we might get a peek into some of it. Family court records are often sealed. I get that, but there's going to be other people in that courtroom. So, to the extent that stuff can be kept quiet, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Hey, another thing that I heard this week that's a very interesting article that I read. We haven't heard in quite some time about the Dobbs decision early release from the Supreme Court. That was the Roe v. Wade decision that was released early, and for some reason I think there's only like 120 employees there, and they just can't figure out. They just can't figure out who did it. Well, that may not necessarily be true. Justice Alito did an interview this past week, and he said he's pretty sure he knows who released it and why. And his reasoning was, or the reason he gave for why was to intimidate the justices from overturning Roe v. Wade. Now, he said he doesn't have enough evidence to 100% definitively say, yes, it was this person. He said he is pretty sure. Well, he's a pretty smart guy. He's been around for a while. So I imagine that he knows the people in that building. It's not a big circle of people who work in that building. So we'll see more to follow on that. And of course, we can't end the show this week without acknowledging that Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson were both let go by their
both canned for
respective agencies.
Very different reasons.
Yes. Well, this is what makes me laugh. So you know me, of course I say it every week. I troll. That's what I do. And all these lives and all this are, the big screenshot at the bottom is Tucker's fired from Fox News. I go in the comments and the very first thing I put is, yeah, Don Lemon was fired too. And we're not talking about Don Lemon. Every single time I put that was it. We're not going to talk about Don Lemon. Well, okay, but that Tucker Carlson is still an employee at Fox, right? He hasn't actually been fired, right?
Well, you mean he's still under contract getting paid, but he's right,
but they didn't fire him.
Yeah, but he'll never do anything on Fox News.
Right, he'll never be on there. The problem for him under that is he has to now work to negotiate the terms of his release from his contract, which is far different from getting a phone call at 6 o'clock in the morning before you're headed into work to say, "Don't come in. You're no longer employed here."
Yeah,
which is what Don Lemon.
Yeah, I mean, you can clearly see the difference in their reactions after the firing or whatever.
Tucker's been on. He's had a couple of his own little live videos, and
he's super happy. And
look, the estimate is that over the next 5 years, Tucker Carlson being away from Fox News will make over $100 million in 5 years. He's already had one offer, I believe, for $25 million a year from OAN. He can't obviously negotiate or talk to them yet, but I think that offer's already been publicized. That it was, that's $100 million right there.
That's probably a low ball. I mean, for him too.
Yeah, I think Fox was paying him $12 million.
Yeah, but I think what his worth is because I mean his value. Because I think you would agree that he probably has more value than Hannity. But Hannity was making somewhere in the neighborhood of $45 million.
Right.
So I think that Tucker is going to do well with whatever he does. I don't know what he's going to do. People are floating the idea that he's going to run for a political office, even potentially be Trump's running mate. I think that would never happen.
Yeah, I think so.
Could he run himself? Possibly, but I don't think so. People are floating that as well. I don't think he would have any real reason to do that.
Yeah, and it depends on what his goals are, I guess. If he's in it for the journalism and his freedom to say what he wants to say, then he's going to go to a place that's going to, one, pay him, and two, allow him.
Yeah, he's so much more suited for that. I think he has a lot more public influence. Like some people would be doing a disservice by getting out of that public realm and getting in political office. In some cases, you just don't have that much power.
Right.
Being that individual there, and you have a lot more influence by being able to reach millions of people every day. So I think that's where Tucker stands. I think he could very well go independent. He really could produce his own program.
Yeah, I think, and that probably somewhere down the line, much like Bill O'Reilly did.
Yeah, I think Tucker is a lot more liked, or at least popular, than even Bill O'Reilly eventually. So
absolutely, but my point being that O'Reilly still has a huge following.
Yeah.
His brand has become pretty successful, I think. What was the other guy's name? Who's the other guy that actually he's with Tucker? White-haired guy, glasses. Can't remember his name. He owns the Blaze.
Oh, Glenn Beck.
Glenn Beck.
Yeah.
Glenn Beck was on Fox. Same thing happened to him. He got shit canned from Fox, and the Blaze has been nothing but successful since he left. To be honest.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where he is. I mean, he's probably younger than Glenn Beck. But I was going to say,
I think he's definitely younger than Glenn Beck.
I just don't think that he needs to do anything. but I'm sure. I mean, we'll see him again.
I mean, these presidents like Biden when he was vice president, and Clinton, the Clintons, and the Obamas and the Bushes. They're making $500,000-$600,000 a speech just to go talk to a group of people. He could do that 3 times a week.
Yeah. I think it's ridiculous, all the people that are celebrating that he's leaving Fox News. Like,
Yeah.
Are you that stupid? That doesn't mean he goes away.
Right.
I mean, he's not Don Lemon. Don Lemon is going to go away. Right. Nobody gives a flying.
And nobody's going to touch him.
No.
And nobody wants to hear his bullshit.
It does blow my mind that it took him this long. Of all the stuff that the guy did, Don Lemon said, all the ridiculous things he said, calling for basically I don't know, ousting might be the best word, but like of white men. Just saying that white men are the problem with everything. Right. Just like stuff like that. And then he gets fired for this, but I think ultimately it's because people just don't care.
Yeah, I mean they obviously wanted one more thing, and he gave it to them. I mean that's really how I look at it.
I think his guests are just wiping the floor with him, and he was, yeah. So, I mean, he was probably just last on their list of them going down the line and cleaning up CNN, because it seems like that's what they've done ever since they've had management. They're going down the line and getting rid of people systematically, and of course they had to wait for the gay black dude to be like, they had to give him more time.
Right, of course, because he was owed that.
Yeah. It was your
reparation. We waited an extra year.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining the show. Hey, if you have any questions, any concerns, any topics, anything you want to say, if you want to come on the show, hit us up. agpodcast13@yahoo.com.
Yeah, there was a lot of things we didn't cover in this one. So if there's any of those topics you want us to hit, I'm happy to talk about them, because there's a few things I wouldn't mind getting into. But yeah, I definitely want to hear what you're interested in. So
absolutely, and hey, we'll see you. Do they have a game next Tuesday?
Yeah, two more games, and that's it.
But is it on Tuesday?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the JV has a game on Monday, but varsity has one on Tuesday.
Oh well, maybe it'll be earlier though.
Yeah, maybe.
Because there's no JV game. I don't know. We'll see. No promises that we're going to do Trash Talk Tuesday on Tuesday, but we'll try to do one, if not on Wednesday then, if we can fit it in. But again, thanks for joining us, and we will be back then. See you, Jake.
Later.